Alright, so this is a walkthrough with the lights on. This is actually after Halloween. I had some towels on the ground here just because it was raining and there was a lot of moisture coming from the fog machine back there. This is a rocking chair that usually is hooked up to a motor, but I was trying to fix it last minute, and as usual, time got away from me. So this is a fog chiller that I made last year, and it's just a big ice chest. And actually I made these aluminum grates just out of angled aluminum and rivets. And actually I have one that fell off here that I'm going to have to fix. Grates come out and I just sit down. You can see I still have the water in there from Halloween because you just basically dump a bunch of ice in here, and there's just a piece of sheet metal that I siliconed in to separate kind of the two chambers. What it does is it forces the fog from this chamber to go up over the sheet metal. So up through the ice on this grate, over the sheet metal, through the ice on this grate, and down to the exhaust port. And what I use is a piece of ABS. This is like a Y adapter. You don't want to use a T adapter because it wouldn't work right. The fog would basically go both ways. You want the fog to go through the path of least resistance, which would be in a Y situation like that. It's a lot better than a T. So here's the fogger. It's just stacked up on some fence board pieces that I had left over. And then what I've done is I've attached it to a bathroom fan. You can get these for like $13 at Lowe's. And I highly recommend this. This is my design, and I've tried making foggers for several years. I've never really been completely happy. This is absolutely hands down the best fogger that I've ever made, or fog chiller rather. But it's pretty simple. You just hook it up. I just attached a power cord to it and siliconed a piece of piping on it. The piping connects to the Y adapter, so fresh air comes in here. You get a good gust of air going that way, the fog going this way. And what this does is it keeps your fog pushing forward and gives you that extra velocity that you wouldn't have because of the size of this chiller if you just used the fogger alone. And that's a 1,000 watt fogger, I believe. And it works great. Now if you watch the video when I first come in, you'll see blue kind of glowing under my cabinets here. And what I do is I use these LED pucks. You can buy a 4-pack of them for about 25 bucks on Amazon.com. And it's the same as the LED light strips that I use. You control it with a remote control. You can pick any color you can think of. And I use a piece of ABS coupling. This is, I think, just a 4-inch coupling. And I just put it on there and slide it under here. That way you can't actually see the lights, all you see is the glow. It works out great. It bounces off the fog. And I have tons of these things. And what I do is when I first set up, I go through the entire hunt, and if I need more light somewhere, I just snag one of those, or I'll snag a candle, one of these. I have a bunch of these battery operated candles. Are great for adding lighting to in a pinch. So this is kind of the finished hunt wall. Just have some photos up there. This is kind of an ode to Silence of the Lambs, just an old weird piece of artwork I found with a bunch of butterflies on it. This is just my airline that I have rolled up there. So this is the finished piping. I just ran like a 1/2 inch and 1 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch pipes, just hot glued them into the 2x4 studs there just to add some more interest. And then down here, this is where the air blast cannon comes out. I have a beam sensor here I tried using for the very first time. I did not like it because fog does trip the sensor constantly. So I'm just gonna go back to using the motion sensor. I think it's more reliable when you're using fog. And then behind here I have another pipe that goes back to a fogger that's hooked up to the air blast cannon, and that comes up here to this manifold, and I drilled a couple holes in the top and it worked out really good. It looked really cool with the fog shooting up. And what happens is the air blast cannon goes off first, and then the fogger trips and comes on for about 5 or 6 seconds and shoots fog out. And this is the kind of the morgue scene. I just used a bunch of scrap plywood that I had and threw it up, made a panel, used some pegboard just to hang stuff up. Makes it look a little more realistic. This is just old props I had. Stuff like this, believe it or not, you can buy it at the 99-cent store. So that's $1 compared to going to a Halloween store and probably spending like $7 or something like that. And it's actually made really well. And I actually didn't have enough time to decorate like I normally do. I ran out of time, so but it was fine. You can tell by the walkthrough that everything came out fine. It's my panel that's off right now, but again, this gives me access to all my light switches and stuff that's behind this cloth. This is an old boiler temperature gauge. I got that at a antique store. So stuff like this obviously I'll save for next year, but a majority of this is going to be taken down. This is actually these are real valve wheels, and this is a real wrench. I just kind of put it down there for decoration. It's kind of hard to see with all the fog in here, so sometimes I'll throw like glow sticks down or just anything to kind of help light the path and kind of show off all of the hard work that was done. But yeah, you never really know until you pump fog into your haunt what everything's going to look like. So I just had some old keys that I got at an antique store, hung that up. This is the funeral home, finished. This was the very first animated prop I ever made. It was a coffin prop. And I made it, I've had it for about 8 years, 7 or 8 years, and it has served me well. It's like Old Faithful. I have a strobe down here. It's controlled by a control panel that I got at Monster Guts. The rig is just all made out of PVC, and it's just a pneumatic with probably an 8-inch throw on there. And there's tons of this is just a skeleton head that I corpsed using latex paint and I think an old t-shirt or something, and just chicken wire around to make the body in that, just skeleton hands, just zip tied together. It looks great at night or with the black light on though. And I finally did make a cross for the funeral home just out of old fence boards, and I aged the wood. These candle holders are great. I got them for 50 cents each at a thrift store. These candles, I don't think Spirit Halloween sold them this year. They're from last year's model, but I bought a bunch of them because they look so great. And what's cool is on Halloween I just give them a twist and they're ready to go. So I just pull all the batteries out for storage, obviously. This is the fog chiller. Again, this is an Antares 101. It's got a built-in pump to exhaust the melted ice water, or the melted ice via water. And that's the inside of it. I've been promising a second video on how I made this chamber, which I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not just because it's so darn big. But if you notice, I did add this is the intake vent for the fan that's on the fogger. And I didn't have a grate seal on there. There's really no way to, because they have a grate that stands proud. I'd have to just keep going around with this weather seal tape, but it worked out good. Actually, I bought another $13 bathroom fan and I installed it on the outside of this box just to keep the airflow pushing that fog out, because once this goes off, all that fog just sits in here. And I was just worried about moisture accumulating, and also worried about heat from this, but this stayed really cool. This it didn't get hot in here at all. I had no issues with it whatsoever.